I think season 2 has an interesting place to where it needs to find what this show is moving forward, because this conflict isn't resolved. Obviously, we will probably let's talk about that next. And Crosshair, as you said, this episode ends with Crosshair staying on the platform and not going with the Bad Batch, basically watching them leave him again, but this time it's his choice and it's not their choice. They want him to come. They offer for him to come. Hunter says, "We're giving you that chance. You said we didn't give you a chance before. Well, we're giving you a chance now, just as you gave us in the last episode, to join us and be a part of this family again." And Crosshair rejects it. I think we're going to see. So there's two places where Crosshair can go for this. One's the thing we brought up last week, which I still think is a really cool idea, of him being like that wandering Ronin assassin that just goes around and is kind of trying to find his place in the universe. That would be really cool. The only, I guess, logical explanation for that I don't, or I at least don't see him doing that first in next season, is the fact that he's stranded there. So he's probably going to end up calling the Empire and saying, "Hey, come back for me." And I think they probably will. And you'll start to see, at least in the first half of the season, a lot more of the political dynamic of him versus Rampart, and him slowly, starting to feel more and more distant from the Empire, where right now his faith is shaken, but he's still not convinced that he doesn't belong there. I think first half of next season, and maybe the entire season, we'll see him continually get pushed out and out the door of the Empire, which will probably lead to him either joining the Batch next season or dying for the Batch, as we kind of thought he might this season. So that's kind of where I see Crosshair going. And I think Crosshair will be one of the most interesting parts of next season, especially because we'll have the other tie-ins to Rebels and Clone Wars that we will need to straighten out and see how much of the show is actually connected to those shows and how much it wants to be the Bad Batch. But if you take the Bad Batch and you take Crosshair, I think Crosshair's dynamic, especially because it does connect to the overall universe and a little bit more to the fate of the clones in general, I think the Crosshair stuff with the Empire would be something I'd be a lot more, like, the most excited to see how that unfolds and how that really contributes to the overall full phase out of the clones by the end of probably season 2. But what are your thoughts on Crosshair and how he ended in this episode and where he might be when next season begins?
It's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously gonna be with how should it? He's gonna be back with the Empire. I don't think they're gonna automatically dismiss him, but I don't think they're gonna really let him just be an elite squad leader anymore. I think at best he's part of the squad, but I don't. I think I don't know. I mean, when I saw his face at the end, first of all, the facial animations of this show have been incredible, but you could see like he just like he wants to. He's like about to turn, but by then they've already like lifted off, and he's just like, if I really wanted this, I would have done it faster. And he just like lets himself get back into his crosshair mentality of like, yeah, this is it. This is the Empire. This is what I've sacrificed for, right? So possibly Crosshair is allowed back into his same role. I don't think he will be. Um, I could totally see him, in truth, really lose a lot of a lot of rep. I guess is the best way to put it. Um, so maybe he's just stuck around with the other elite troops. I could also just see him being forced to work with Regs, right? Now that he's just another clone trooper, he has to be like with those regs, and the regs are already, when the guy talks to Rampart, he's like, the facility has been destroyed. Like you can see, like he has to say it, but it just like it hurts that he has to say it, right? We've seen so many of these TK troopers. Why not have a TK trooper reporter, right, or an elite trooper? But no, it's a clone trooper who has to say it. And I know Rampart is smart enough to make, smart enough to make the clone troopers kind of witness and bear this pain. And I mean, yeah, we could see him be a wandering Ronin. I think there's a chance that he can leave after he realizes, just like, this is stupid. Let me just escape after this. Um, there's also just more than likely that, he could want to feel that I am valuable, I am respected, I'm useful to the Empire. So he could be willing to just let himself just continue to be augmented or do whatever. I mean, Crosshair is not really the guy who's going to be physically intimidating you, but his eyesight plus, a few augmented, like, enhancements, he might be pretty freaking scary. He's already a monster the way he killed that other elite trooper, but is it so hard to say that, like, he might be willing to just do whatever it takes to still be valuable, right? I know, um, they still really want Omega, the Empire, for the pure genetic template, all right? But I don't think at this point it's because they want to make clone troopers. It's more like so we can just throw it up and scare if in some little facility data collection sort of thing. Um, I want him to, find a purpose in his life that's actually good for him, and even if it leaves him disconnected from his family. Even though Omega makes a point of like saying, "I'm your sister, they're your brothers," like he knows it to a degree, and he wants to accept it, but he's already gone so far down this path that he's like, "Can I really ever do this? Like, can I?" So I mean, if the Empire stuff doesn't turn out to happen, and if whatever happens is terrible for him, but he has the option to like get out of it, to really become a character that is not, to put lightly, suppressed or, further exploited. I want him to become like a Mandalorian. I want him to become. I don't want him to become like Ventress with her whole bounty hunter arc. I don't think he's. I don't think he has necessarily childhood trauma in the way that Ventress has, where she lost everyone. For him, he still has the Bad Batch out there. He still has an option, but I think he needs to learn how to take his values, the choices that he's made, and put them into a more beneficial method for himself. Because I don't think he has this. He talks like he has it, but he doesn't really have much self respect or self value. He thinks that being a cog is what will make him better than he is, more than something. When in truth, he's was left behind and been destroyed, right? Shot at, like almost assumed to be dead. I don't think they're going to take too kindly that the Empire that he's back. They're going to be like, all right, we'll make use of you, but you're not going to be much more useful than you were before, right? We've already gotten whatever we needed out of Camino. Let's get on. And the cloning process is done. Whatever they're going to be cloning for is obviously more linked in with that Snoke and Palpatine route. Obviously, I could see like maybe a Grogu appearance of some sorts in the next season as an episode. I don't want it to just become the Baby Yoda show and the Bad Batch have to do something and save him, but the timeline does match up. How does he get smuggled away from the temple and disappear for 20, 30 years, right? So if it's Crosshair that does that, if Crosshair somehow, has a sort of redemption where he doesn't let someone else be exploited like himself, right? That'd be cool. I don't know how it'll happen. I just don't see in any way Grogu not appearing on the show. And if the Mandalorian route happened, if the further exploitation of villainous Crosshair doesn't happen, at least let him go out with a bang, with saving the future of, I'm assuming, the Jedi and the Force users in the galaxy.
When you talk about his self-worth, I think that's something that really hit home for me personally with how his character is going to, be portrayed in the next season or two. And I think Crosshair, that ending where Omega tries to get him to one last, attempt to get him to come with them, even after Hunter already it tries to appeal to him and get him to come with them. That type of moment almost feels more like he's defiant, not because he doesn't want to go with them, but he kind of feels like at this point he might not deserve to go with them. I feel
Yeah.
like I kind of want to see that further just complete devaluation of his character amongst the Empire.
Yeah,
And
exploitation. Yeah,
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 exactly. They need to make him. I think it would be cool. That's a good idea with him working with regs. Maybe there's only a few more squads of regs, and they just send him on the worst missions. Like, absolutely, you're definitely gonna die missions because they
yeah.
just want them all to die.
Send him
And
out to
so,
Mimbon, right? Just
exactly,
he just that's the worst place to be. Yeah,
exactly. That's the type of stuff I want to see Crosshair deal with because he's always been someone who shoots people from afar. We don't really get. He never experiences like close, basically imminent death. Like, Crosshair's always been so much better than all the other soldiers. He's worked with soldiers that are always better than everybody else, and they never lose. And so it'd be interesting to see if he gets thrown in with a bunch of regs and they get sent to a mission where they're all supposed to die, and Crosshair's the only one that comes back, and he just keeps being the only one who comes back, and we start to see that weigh on him, and he starts to realize, more crystally that he's definitely not valued at the Empire. One, because of the missions they're sending him, but two, the fact that his skill set, and I think he has a lot of pride in his skill set, isn't being used for the right thing. I think that could really hurt him. And I do think we end up seeing him go off on his own before we see him join the Bad Batch. But it would be interesting to see how, because I think it could be one of those types of missions where he gets sent somewhere, everyone dies, he has no way home, and he ends up just kind of drifting and they forget about him. And then maybe he starts causing a little bit of havoc, and maybe he causes havoc to try to get back with the Empire. You could see something like that, kind of like that needy relationship where he needs the Empire, needs something to fight for, and then maybe living with the Bad Batch and being that part of a family isn't really what he was designed for. As Tech kind of says, he's someone who he's stern and insubordinate, but he's also wants to follow orders of a higher power. He wants somebody telling him where to go, what to do, who to point his gun at. And if he doesn't have that, and if he's not given that by the Empire, you'll start to see a Crosshair that's, for the first time, truly lost, has nothing really to go back to. And I think that could be a really cool angle for them to go with if they really hammer that home. And I'd love to see Crosshair get pretty much equal screen time to the Bad Batch. I'd love it to be every episode, A side, B side, A side Bad Batch, B side Crosshair. I'd like it to be 50-50 episodes, because we did start the season that way and end the season that way. But the middle of the season was much more into the Star Wars underworld. There was a lot of Rebels connections, and some of the episodes didn't even have a B side. They were all Bad Batch little adventures. There was the Rancor episode. There was the Sid Pike episode that we all love so much. And there was, so many just side adventures that don't even feature Crosshair or the Empire at all, really. And I'd like to see them kind of narrow that focus to, even if the show doesn't necessarily become the Rebels prequel like we think at times it might be, or the Clone Wars sequel like it sometimes it feels like it's going to be, at least if they narrow the focus to Empire, Bad Batch, and clone relationships to the Empire, I still think we can end off with that, epic finale of a true clone rebellion against the Empire, and seeing the last stand of the clones. Thanks so much for watching this segment of the Star Wars Lads podcast. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video by clicking the thumbs up button down below, and subscribe to our channel for new Star Wars content every single week. If you want to watch our full discussion, click the video on the left, or if you want to check out one of our other awesome videos, click the video on the right.